Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Sambandha Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaura Pramanande.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Bhadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamishcha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunimiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Pancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanayi Krishna Prema Pridayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gauratishe Namaha Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalamashanashaya Janavapataye Namaha Ajanulambita Bhujo Kanakavadato Samkirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishvambaro Dvijavaro Yugadharma Palo Bande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jayatam Suruto Pangor Mama Manda Mater Gati Matsarvasva Padam Baujo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Simhashanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Preshtalibhi Sevyamano Smarami Sriman Rasarasarambi Vamshivata Tatakstitaha Karshana Venu Swanayar Gopir Gopinata Shriyestumaha Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptascha Kamari Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Srila, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Srila, Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Anuga Guru Varga, especially to Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pad, the author of Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to all of the Vaishnavas and all of the Vaishnavis.
I just realized today is also Sri Sarang Thakur's disappearance.
Okay. Today is the disappearance day of Sri Saranga Thakur, one of the intimate associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, little by little, we're making our way through. We're actually at page 141.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, out of, let's see, like around 500 pages. Not quite. Yeah. About, almost 520 pages. 530 pages. Okay. 530 pages, so we're about a third of the way through. So yesterday we completed verse 9 and 10, and now we're on verse 11. And Srila Raghunath Das Goswami is continuing with his glorification of Srimati Radhika. So the verse reads, Svapne pikim sumukite charanam bujata rajat paraga patavasa vibhushanena shobham param atitaram ahahottamangam bibrad bhavishyati kada mama sarta nama. You can, no, first I'll read the translation, then we'll repeat. O beautiful faced one, when, even in a dream, will I, by decorating my head with the splendid perfumed powder from your lotus feet, attain the goal of my life? You can repeat, Swapne, Pi, Kim, Sumuki, Te, Charanam Bujata, Rajat, Paraga, Patavasa, Vibhushanena, Shobham, Param, Patitaram, Ahahottamangam, Bibrad Bhavishyati Kada Mama Sartanama. O beautiful faced one, when even in a dream will I, by decorating my head with the splendid by decorating my head with the splendid perfumed powder from your lotus feet, attain the goal of my life. I'm reading it once more. Oh, beautiful faced one. That means Sumukhi. Sumukhi means beautiful faced. When, even in a dream, Svapne Pikim, that's the first word. Svapna means dream. So, oh, beautiful faced one, when, even in a dream, will I, by decorating my head with the splendid perfumed powder from your lotus feet, attain the goal of my life. Srila Gurudev's commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali is truly comprised of Rag Anuga Bhakti. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained in his Jaiva Dharma in the chapter 39 that Srila Madhavendra Puri, Srila Ishwara Puri, Srila Sanatan Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, and all acharyas in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are Rag Anuga Sadhaks of Transcendental Parakya Rasa. So Gurudev is beginning by quoting these authorities and stating that this entire book, Vilapa-kusumanjali, is truly comprised of Rag Anuga Bhakti. That's what it is. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, now he's referring to his Jaiva Dharma, chapter 39, that all of our acharyas, beginning from Madhavendra Puri, Srila Ishwara Puri, Srila Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and all acharyas in the line, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, that are following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all acharyas are Raganuga Sadhaks of Transcendental Parakya Ras. Now, why is he specifying Raganuga Sadhaks of Transcendental Parakya Ras? Because there's other types of Raganuga Sadhaks who are not of Transcendental Parakya Ras. So we'll hear now from Gurudev. So all of these personalities, all of these acharyas, they are not Vaidhi Bhakti sadhaks of Svakya Ras. So what is Svakya Ras? Means married. Svakya and Parakya. Svakya means married. And Parakya means paramour. Having a paramour, beloved. Although married. But the paramour is their real beloved. That's Parakya. So now, they are not Vaidhi Bhakti sadhaks of Svakya Ras. Our entire Sampradaya, down to our Gurudev, is of Raganuga Bhakti. So, all of our Sampradaya, everyone, they're all of this Raganuga Bhakti. Now, those who are of Vaidhi Bhakti and who do not aspire for Raganuga, they would do better to leave this Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya and go to the Ramanuja, the Madhva, or any other Sampradaya. However, a Vaidhi Bhakti sadhak who wants to follow Raganuga Bhakti, he should remain. Well, I've heard Gurudev tell this in person quite a number of times. This is what you're here for. And if you're not here for that, you better you go to Ramanuja, Madhva Sampradaya, any other Sampradaya. However, a Vaidhi Bhakti sadhak who wants to follow Raganuga Bhakti should remain. So that's us. That's us. Vaidhi Bhakti sadhak, who wants to follow Raganuga Bhakti, he should remain here, because this is what it's about. Now, if one says that Srila Jiva Goswami was not following the principles of Raganuga Bhakti and Parakya Ras, someone says that about Srila Jiva Goswami, that he was not following the principles of Raganuga Bhakti and of Parakya Ras, then his statement is not correct. If someone says that, they're not correct. It is wrong. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur tells in his Jaiva Dharma that at the time of Jiva Goswami, there were so many kinds of Vaishnavas. Now Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining, because there's some confusion regarding Srila Jiva Goswami's position. You know what that's about? Have you heard that before? Can say?
That he was supporting Swakya instead of Parakya on his literature, and to his disciples he was explaining that Swakya is the highest goal instead of Parakya.
Right. So now Gurudev is pointing out how persons who say that, they're wrong. It is wrong. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur tells in his Jaiva Dharma that at the time of Jiva Goswami, there were so many kinds of Vaishnavas. It was only for those who did not have the appropriate qualifications for Raganuga Bhakti or Parakya Bhakti that Jiva Goswami wrote about Swakya Bhav. So he wrote for others. That's a proof of how an Acharya examines the audience of the time and the sensitivities of the audience and the capabilities of the audience to understand and to accept. And he determined that because there were so many different types of persons who would not be able to accept, so he led them in this direction by writing about Swakya. But it doesn't mean that he himself was a follower of Swakya. Gurudev goes further. In his own Lochan Rochini Tika of the Ujjvala Nilamani, so this is Jiva Goswami, he's got his commentary on Ujjvala Nilamani, and Jiva Goswami Pad has written, Svechaya likitam kinchit, kinchid atra parechaya, yat purva para sambandham, tat purvam aparam param. So, here he clearly states, I have written some statements according to my own mood, and some according to the moods of others, who are not qualified. So others who are not qualified, I've written some statements for them, and also some of the statements that I've written are for my own mood. What I have written as my own opinion, it has a link with what is written in Srila Rupa Goswami's Ujjvala Nilamani, and also his later works. So, what I've written for my own opinion has a link with what is written in Srila Rupa Goswami's Ujjvala Nilamani and also his later works. I have reconciled all the apparently contradictory statements. What I have written with this reconciliation is my opinion, and that is Parakya Ras. So, all our Goswamis are both Raganuga and Rupanuga. So now we come to this analysis. Raganuga and Rupanuga. So all of the Goswamis, they are both of these, Raganuga and Rupanuga. The Srila Raghunath Das Goswami especially is the number one Rupanuga. Number one. Jiva Goswami is also Rupanuga, but Raghunath Das Goswami is number one. Within the category of Rupanuga, there are two kinds of devotees. In the category of Rupanuga, that is sadhaks and siddhas, both of which are divided into many different stages. Sadhaks who have no past samskar, but who now have the new samskar of association with a Rasik Vaishnava, they possess weak samskar. What's he saying? Did you catch that?
Yeah, they're just coming into the path.
Right. So they don't have from previous life. The sadhaks who have no past samskars, but now who have the new samskars of association with the Rasik Vaishnava, they possess a weak samskar, not so strong, not yet. And the sadhak who has samskar from his past life, and also Rasik Vaishnava association in this life, then mixing both samskars will advance very quickly and soon turn into a real devotee. Those with past and present samskars, they will soon have nishta. And then after nishta, they will have ruchi. Actually, if they have the tendency for raganuga, they will pass over the stage of nishta and at once begin from ruchi. That's if what? If they have the tendency for raganuga, then they will pass over the stage of nishta at once and begin from ruchi or asakti and will gradually come to bhav dasha. Now that is very rare, is it not?
We need the previous samskars, right?
Yes. But we see certain personalities. I can think of one in particular. Well, I can think of many in our sampradaya. But just like the life of Srila Govinda Maharaj, he had so many samskaras from his previous life and in this life. And the moment that Prabhupada saw him, and he looked like, because he had wandered in India for a year, like just living like a sadhu on the side of the road, and looking, he was searching for his guru. He went to the Himalayas, he went everywhere. Now he ended up in Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, he got a Back to Godhead magazine. He went to the temple, and he understood, oh, this person, he's my guru. By looking at the magazine and looking at the movement he started and everything, then he met his disciples, and he asked, oh, where is this person? Oh, he's here. He's here in Vrindavan in his room at Krishna Balaram Mandir. So when he came there, this was while the construction of the temple was still going on. It hadn't been completed. It was like 1974. It was opened in 75. So when he came into the room, he had a little bit of a harder time to get into the room because there were the guards. And they took him to be, like just a sadhu. There's like thousands of them lining the path, wearing saffron cloth. He was wearing saffron cloth. He had taken the name Gaur Gopal. It was not his birth name, but he took this name, Gaur Gopal. So anyway, when he did make it into the room and Srila Prabhupada saw him, Prabhupada immediately spoke to him. He said, have you taken sannyas? He said, no, I haven't. I will give you sannyas. That's his first words. So immediately Srila Prabhupada could recognize who he is, what's his level, without even talking to him, anything. Huh? That's Satguru and Sat Sishya. And very quickly, he was engaged, but none of the devotees could understand what his level is or anything. And then when it was time for his sannyas, the story is that, because he was very expert in performing all priestly yagyas and everything like that, his whole life he had been doing this. So he was the one that was performing the yagya for his own sannyas ceremony. Prabhupada was sitting there, and there were two dandas and there were two sitting places. And one of them, Tripurari Swami, who was getting sannyas at that time, 1975, he was sitting in one of the seats. And everyone was wondering, who's the other person? So, and I was actually there watching, but I didn't know about this at all. I didn't understand what was going on until many years later. So then Prabhupada was sitting up a little bit higher, and then this yajna was going on, and when the yajna was completed to whatever extent, then the person who was doing the yajna got up and sat in that seat. As Gaura Govinda Maharaj, So his life is so extraordinary if you read about his life. And Srila Prabhupada understood all along how, and he even told this just before he departed from the world. In Vrindavan, he told this to Krishna Maharaj and others, that Gaura Govinda Maharaj, he can be the next Acharya. And he also mentioned Radha Govinda Swami, these two persons, Radha Govinda Swami still living. That they were very advanced from previous lives. But of course, the disciples couldn't accept that he's going to be the Acharya. So anyway, when Srila Prabhupada came to the end of his Leela, then in early 1977, I think it was January of the year that he departed, then Srila Prabhupada stayed there in Bhubaneswar, in the hut. They wanted to put him in a hotel. No, I want to stay with my son, Gaura Govinda. So then they stayed on each side. There were like two different sides of it. And for 17 days, Prabhupada stayed there, and he spoke for hours every afternoon with Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj. So he has not done that with others. So in this way, these personalities, they're very, very much advanced, and as soon as they come in contact with Sadguru, and then they go very quickly. So, and of course, our own Gurudev, the story of his amazing life, there's so many examples in our Shastras. So Gurudev is pointing this out. Actually, this is hopeful for us, but at the same time, we have to be realistic. So I'm just reading that again. The sadhak who has a samskara from his past life, and also he has Rasik, Vaishnava association in this life, then mixing both samskaras, he will advance very quickly and soon turn into a real devotee. Those with past and present samskaras will soon have nishta, and after nishta they will have ruchi. And actually, if they have the tendency for raganuga, they will pass over the stage of nishta and at once begin from the stage of ruchi or asakti and will gradually come to the bhava dasha. Shri Radha Govinda Ji Ki Jai. Now, the next section is titled Ekadash Bhav. Ekadash. You know what Ekadash means?
11
Yes.
11 bhavs that you get when you get your Srila Pranali.
Yeah. Ekadash. Like Ekadashi means the 11th day. And Ekadash, because das means 10, and Eka means 1. So 1 plus 10. That's how the numbering system goes. Ekadash Bhav. The 11 principles for Madhurya Rasa. To become established in Bhav Dasha, then one must cultivate Ekadash Bhav, the 11 principles. In Jaiva Dharma it is stated that those who have a very keen interest and they have thick greed to hear these topics, and who continually hear from Rasik Vaishnavas, then very quickly they reach a high stage of devotional practice. Vijay Kumar and Vrajanath first heard from Srila Raghunath Babaji, who then ordered them to go to Jagannath Puri, where they would have the association of both Sri Gopal Guru Goswami and Sri Dhyan Chandra Goswami. You've heard these names before? These are contemporary acharyas during the time of Mahaprabhu and after. And Gopal Guru Goswami, his disciple is Dhyan Chandra Goswami, they are the ones who have given the whole line of the 6 Goswamis and what is this line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and so forth. Very exalted personalities and very great acharyas in our line. So when Vijay Kumar and Vrajanath in the Jaiva Dharma, they were hearing everything in Navadvip, right? And they were hearing from Srila Raghunath Babaji. But then at a certain point, he ordered them to go to Jagannath Puri, where they would have the association of both Sri Gopal Guru Goswami and Sri Dhyan Chandra Goswami, quickly attaining an elevated stage of bhakti. Vrajanath then heard the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Ujjvala Nilamani from the beginning to end, and he developed a very thick greed to enter Ashtakalya Leela. This is which one? Brajanath. Yes. And only then, when that greed had come, did Gopal Guru Goswami instruct him in Ekadash Bhav. This will go on. Now, Gurudev is actually listing the 11 items of Ekadash Bhav here. And after that, he's listing the 5 stages after Ekadash Bhav. Very technical and very helpful for us. So, the 11 transcendental sentiments, he's calling them transcendental sentiments for Madhurya Rasa. They are, number 1, Sambandha. Sambandha means the relationship between upasya. Upasya means the object of our worship, which is who? Krishna, Srimati Radhika, Mahaprabhu. So, Sambandha is the first item. That means the relationship between the upasya, the object of worship, and the upasaka. Upasak means the worshipper. So between upasya and upasak. That's called Sambandha. Krishna, the dear Lalita Nayak. Nayak means what?
Hero.
Hero, yes. And dear Lalita, there is the type of hero. Very playful, dear Lalita. So Krishna, the dear Lalita Nayak, is the worshipful object. He is the upasya. And Srimati Radhika is the Nayika, the beloved who is serving him. The sadhak considers as follows: I am the servant of Srimati Radhika, and Krishna is her beloved. I am a Palyadasi of Srimati Radhika. So now, this should be very clearly understood by us, that in this line, that Sambandha, that first item of the 11 sentiments, must be this in order to complete this course of entering into our eternal position like that. Not that we see Krishna as our beloved. No. Srimati Radhika, I am the servant of Radhika, and Krishna is her beloved. That's how one will see in this realm of Ekadash Bhavs, which are going towards Parakiya Bhav and Palyadasi Bhav. So the relationship must be of that. Otherwise it will not happen. And so his identity, his Sambandha, is that I'm the servant of Srimati Radhika and I am the Palyadasi of Srimati Radhika, and Krishna is her beloved. Whenever they see Krishna, they only see Krishna as the beloved of their Swamini. You see. Number two. Number two is Vyasa, means the age. Vyas. The age from 10 to 16 extends from Vyasandhi, that's adolescence, until Kishore, teenage. So it can be in this area. But we know that the Manjaris are also a bit younger than the Sakis are. But they're also growing in the Nityadam, and sometimes they're in the earlier stages, sometimes they're in the later stages. The third item is Nam, means what is the name? What is the eternal name of your transcendental form? And the name will be appropriate to one in Srimati Radhika's Yuta. What does Yuta mean? Group. So Srimati Radhika's group, there will be an appropriate name for someone to come into her group. The fourth item is Rupa or form. A very beautiful Kishori Gopi form is just suitable for serving Srimati Radhika. Number 5, the Yuta, the group. A follower in this line is in Srimati Radhika's Yuta, in Lalita Sakhi's Gan, the subgroup of Radhika's Yuta is the Gana. There's the Yuta and the Gana. So the Lalita Sakhi's Gana, her subgroup, and also Vishaka is her Siksha Guru. So that relationship is there in the group. Very close relationship with Lalita Sakhi and Vishaka. Number 6 is the Vesh, or the color, qualities, and so forth of one's attire, the dress. They all have their particular color and also the qualities of that dress, like that. Number 7 is Agya. Agya means orders for service. They carry orders. What service? This is the service or the orders given by the Yuteshwari or the Gana Nayak. So orders are being given by Yuteshwari, Srimati Radhika, or the Gana, the subgroup, the Nayak, the Nayak of the subgroup. Number 8, Vasastan. Vasastan means residence. Knowledge of one's residence includes the names of one's father, mother, husband, and other relations in the spiritual world. Number 9 is the seva, or one's personal service. By seeing the service rendered by the Nitya Parikars, one will have agreed to serve like them as a maid servant of Srimati Radhika. You must have the Nitya Parikars association and be able to observe. Number 10, Parakashta Shvasa. Parakashta Shvasa, or the highest aspiration for the service of Srimati Radhika. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has explained this in 2 shlokas of the Vilapa-kusumanjali, verses 102 and 100. Verse 100 is a prayer to Krishna, and verse 102 is a prayer to Radhika. So Parakashta Shvas means the highest aspiration. Shvasa actually means your very life breath. The very end goal of your very life breath. That means the highest aspiration for the service of Srimati Radhika. So later we'll hear how Raghunath Das Goswami has designated this in those 2 verses. Number 11, the final one, Radha Palya Dasi Bhav. or the natural sentiment of the maidservant of Srimati Radhika. This maidservant has the same quality of prema to both Radha and Krishna, with an inclination towards Srimati Radhika. There is little difference between Parakashta Shvasa and Palyadasi Bhav. Very little difference. Specifically, Parakashta Shvasa expresses one's unwillingness to live without serving Srimati Radhika, your life breath. If I cannot serve Radhika, I want to die. And Palyadasi Bhav emphasizes one's exclusive mamata towards her. Oh, Srimati Radhika, I am yours. That's mamata. So we know that verse. Our Gurudev used to say it, not all the time, but he used to say it in his Mangala Charana when he would lecture. And he would say the verse spoken by Raghunath Das Goswami. Tavai vasmi, na jivami tvaya bina. Iti vigyaya devi tvam or radhe tvam nayamam charanantike. So these are the 11 bhavs. And the Raganuga Sadhak at this stage will adopt all of these. So in the stage of Raganuga, after adopting and cultivating Ekadash Bhav, he will gradually come to the 5 stages or the dashas. Now this, not dasa or das, it's called dasha, like D-A-S-H-A, dasha. So these 5 stages or dashas after Ekadash Bhav. The first one, and that comes after adopting and cultivating the Ekadash Bhav. So the first is called Shravan Dasha. You can see this also in the purport of Srila Prabhupada's Upadeshamrita. He's quoting Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He's quoting him, who's explaining these 5 dashas. So, Shravan Dasha is the first stage. This is the stage of hearing about Radha, Krishna, the gopis, the Palyadasis, and so on, with faith and with great eagerness, and the desire to enter their pastimes. So, that's the beginning. After understanding these Ekadash Bhavs, then the sadhak will, at this stage, he will adopt all of these bhavs, and then after adopting and cultivating Ekadash Bhav, he will gradually come to the 5 dashas. So Shravan Dasha. Shravan means hearing. Now, the second one is Varan Dasha. So Varan means to accept. Hearing, and then after hearing, acceptance. Varan Dasha. This is the stage of acceptance. The third stage is called Smaran Dasha. Smaran means remembrance, right? So this is the stage of remembrance, chanting and remembering all these topics. Fourth stage is called Bhav Apan Dasha. Bhav Apan Dasha. This is the stage of application. In its maturity, this stage is also called Swarup Siddhi, when it's mature. When Vishuddha Sattva descends upon the heart and Bhav or Rati manifests. Bhav Apan Dasha. So at first, Ekadash Bhav will be practiced by one's own efforts and by the grace of a Rasika Vaishnava. And after some time, these transcendental sentiments coming from that parikar whom one has agreed to follow, they will manifest automatically. And finally, number 5, Prem Sampatti Dasha. With the manifestation of Prem, one enters Vastu Siddhi. What's Vastu Siddhi?
Is that your constitutional position?
Yeah, vastu means that you actually enter into the past times. And even Prabhupada has told about this in his Krishna book in a very brief way. But for the first time, the devotee, actually prior to the stage of praying, in the very high stage of bhav, Gurudev also explained this in Madhurya Kadambini, that just as the devotee is about to cross the threshold of praying, then Yogamaya arranges for that devotee to leave this body and to be transported. Guess where? Not in this universe, into another universe. Like, that's really inconceivable. How you can be transported by who? Yogamaya. To the exact universe where Krishna is currently, at this very moment, performing his pastimes as he did 5,000 years ago here. And he will take birth there, from the womb of a Brajagopi, in Krishna's Bhom Lila. And then Prabhupada actually states this, that that will be the first time that the devotee actually sees Krishna. You see? So here, that final stage, that final dasha, is called Prem Sampati. Prem Sampati Dasha. With the manifestation of Prem, then one enters Vastu Siddhi. That's the Vastu Siddhi is when you have your eternal spiritual body there, in Krishna's pastimes. But not yet in the Nityadam, in Krishna's pastimes within the universes, right? So then, these 5 dashas, these stages, are all kramas. Krama means gradual progressions. It also means sequence. Gradual progressions, kramas, these 5 dashas. When the sadhak has advanced through all 5 levels, then he attains the qualification to fully remember the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And at that time, his remembrance will be automatic, without any effort on his part. Even if he wants to check his absorption, he will be unable to check it. So, Raghunath Das Goswami, now after mentioning these 2 lists, the Ekadash Bhavs and the 5 stages after Ekadash Bhav, the different 5 dashas. So now Gurudev is saying Raghunath Das Goswami, he is a siddha, but he is acting as a sadhak. Really, he's perfected, but he's acting in this world as a sadhak. We read yesterday how Raghunath Das Goswami is our greatest friend because he has demonstrated to us what is the pathway. So his activities as a sadhak, they are mentioned by Srinivasacharya in the Sad Goswami Ashtakam. Okay? So we've heard this before many times. This is from verse 6. These are his activities. What did he do? Sankhya purvaka nama gana natibi kalavasani krito nidrahara viharakadi vijito chatyanta dino chayo radha krishna gunasmriter madhurima nandena sammohito bande rupa sanatano raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako. So here, Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natibi. I offer pranam to the 6 Goswamis who were engaged in Sankhya, in chanting the holy name to the Lord. Sankhya Purvaka Nama. And also bowing down, Natibi, in a scheduled measurement. In this way, they utilized their valuable lives, and in executing these devotional activities, they conquered over Nidrahara viharakadi vijito.
Eating and sleeping.
Yes, they conquered over eating and sleeping, and they were always meek and humble. Chatyanta dino chayo. Atyanta din means extremely low and fallen. That's how they felt. And they were always meek and humble, enchanted by remembering the transcendental qualities of the Lord. How is that mentioned? Radha Krishna Guna Smriter Madhurima Anandena Sammohito. Sammohito means completely enchanted and in ecstatic mood, remembering their qualities and Madhurima and their sweet pastimes. So then Gurudev also quotes the last verse of the Sant Goswami Astakam, number 8. He Radhe Vrajadevike Chalalite He Nanda Suno Kutaha Shri Govardhana Kalpa Pada Patale Kalindi Vanye Kutaha Gosantav Iti Sarvato Vrajapure Kedair Maha Vivalo Vande Rupa Sanatano Raguyago Sri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my pranam to the 6 Goswamis who were chanting very loudly everywhere in Vrindavan, shouting, O Queen of Vrindavan, Srimati Radhika, O Lalite, O son of Nanda Baba, where are you all now? Are you just at Govardhan, or are you under the trees on the bank of the Yamuna? Where are you? These were their moods in executing Krishna Bhakti. Kedair Maha Vivalo. That means their hearts very agitated with praying as they're calling out everywhere. So these were his outward practices as a sadhak, whereas the subject matter of Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali is that of Siddhabhav. So now Gurudev is explaining that Raghunath Das Goswami outwardly was showing the activities in his sadhak body, sadhak sharir, right? So these were his outward practices as listed in the Sat Goswami Astakam, whereas the subject matter of Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali is that of Siddhabhav. So when he was in his inner mood, the pastimes of Radha and Krishna manifested in his heart. Later, when they disappeared, he would cry, where am I? Where is that pastime? And at that time, he was hankering and weeping, praying, rolling on the banks of Radha Kunda, where he lived near a tamal tree and a kadamba tree. In this way, he experienced the 11 bhavs. Aho Sumukhi, in this verse, he's telling in the beginning of the verse that we're discussing, he says, Aho Sumukhi. Here Raghunath Das Goswami is praying to the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika. He is praying in Sadak Bhav, not Siddha Bhav. But sometimes Siddha Bhav comes down in his heart. The next section is called the 3 stages of consciousness. As previously mentioned, there are 3 stages of consciousness. In one stage, we are talking and we are thinking about one thing or another, and that is called Bahya Dasha, external consciousness. The second is the opposite, quite opposite, and that is called Antar Dasha, internal consciousness. At that time, all the awareness of this world and the senses stops. Only internal awareness is experienced. Then, in the middle of the other two, neither fully external nor fully internal, is Ardha Bahya Dasha. So, the sadhak who is in the Uttama stage, he can experience all three, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. When Mahaprabhu was in inner sense, he was seeing that I am playing with Radha and Krishna. Radha and Krishna are engaged in so many confidential pastimes, and I am taking part in them. Who's saying this? Mahaprabhu. I am serving Radha and Krishna is loving me. So at that time, Swarup Damodar, this is in Jagannath Puri, and at that time, Swarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda and about 100 other persons came with kol, kartal, and other instruments. And seeing Mahaprabhu, they began a loud kirtan. Mahaprabhu at once awoke, and in his Ardha Bahya stage, that means half internal, half external, then he began to cry. Why have you called me? I was playing with Radha and Krishna there in Vrindavan. I was completely absorbed in participating in their vilas, in their sweet pastimes, fanning them and serving them so sweetly. Why did you awaken me? And then he wept so bitterly. This is Mahaprabhu. After that, and then after 2, 3, or 4 hours, he came to his full external consciousness. And then he told his associates, I was seeing their pastimes and someone called me. What was I doing? At that time, was I crying? Because he doesn't remember in his half out stage. Was I crying at that time? What was I doing? He's asking his associates. Or was I weeping or rolling down on the earth? What madness was I in? And they consoled him. No, nothing. So in a similar way, a sadhak in the highest stage of Rag Anuga Bhakti, like Raghunath Das Goswami, will sometimes see the internal pastimes, and sometimes he will realize them in half internal and half external consciousness. And when he is in outer sense, then he will pray and weep as if something has been lost. Not something, but as if everything has been lost. Now in the 7th shloka, he prayed, O Radhike, I am feeling so much separation I cannot save my life. I will die at once. I am burning in this fire of separation. I cannot bear it. I'm crying. And my crying is this Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali, an offering of flower-like lamentations unto your lotus feet. Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali was written when Raghunath Das Goswami was in his Bahya Dasha, remembering the pastimes that he saw in his Antar Dasha, his inner bhav. So, obviously, if he's in his inner bhav, he can't hold a pen and begin writing. But he's in Bahya Dasha, he's in the outer, but he's remembering the pastimes that are in the inner bhav. So then he says, and he's praying to Srimati Radhika, O Sumukhi. O Sumukhi, your love for me. Sumukhi is who?
Beautiful face.
Beautiful face, and who is that?
Srimati Radhika.
Yes. So he's saying, O Sumukhi, your love for me, your mercy is so high, so rare, that even Brahma and Shankar cannot have this. Even Narad and the gurus of Narad, that is, Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan, and Sanat Kumar, they cannot have this mercy. It is very rare to have the mercy of the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika. you should know who she is. So now, Gurudev is quoting a verse from Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi. You know this book? Radha Rasa, you can say? Radha Rasa Sudha Nidhi. So Sudha means nectar and Nidhi means ocean. The nectar ocean of Radha Rasa. That book is written by who? Prabodhananda Saraswati, who is an incarnation in Gaur Lila of who? Tunga Vidya Devi. He lived there in Vrindavan right near Kaliagat. We go to his Samadhi all the time. Very long time he lived there. Who is Prabodhananda Saraswati? He is the brother of, of Gopal Bhatta Goswami's father. When Mahaprabhu went to Sri Rangam in South India, and he stayed 4 months with that family of very high elevated Brahmin priests of the temple. That was Venkata Bhatta. Their surname was Bhatta. So there was 3 brothers. Venkata Bhatta is the father of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Then Srimala Bhatta is his brother, or the uncle of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And then Prabodhananda Saraswati is also the other 3rd brother. So Prabodhananda Saraswati had the association of Mahaprabhu there in Sri Rangam. And after that, then he journeyed to Vrindavan and he lived there for many, many years. And he wrote very important books. Now, he's writing from the viewpoint of one of the Sakhis of Srimati Radhika. But he also begins to talk about the moods of the Manjaris. Although he or she is not in that mood in his eternal form, but he knows those moods. So the whole book, actually that was the book that Bhakti Swarup Sridhar Maharaj began to lecture on here in the courtyard for 1 week. Yeah, he didn't make it very far, because he just goes into so many nectar directions from each and every verse. It was so beautiful presentation. And so this is a very famous verse from the Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi. It's the verse number 4 from that book. Yo Brahma Rudra Shuka Narada Bhishma Mukhyayar Alakshito Nasahasa Purushasya Tasya Sadyo Vashi Karanachurnam Ananta Shaktim Tam Radhika Charanarenum Anusmarami. This last line, Tam Radhika Charanarenum Anusmarami, he repeats in a number of verses. So, I constantly remember the foot dust of Sri Radhika, whose unlimited power of the foot dust of Srimati Radhika's lotus feet instantly subdues even the Supreme Person, Sri Krishna, who himself cannot be easily seen even by the greatest devotees like Brahma, Shiv, Narad, and Bhishma. Can you bring a cup of water? It's on my table. It's right in the corner, nearest to the lamp. So, so what Gurudev is saying is that Raghunath Das Goswami is telling in this prayer to Srimati Radhika that, O Sumukhi, your love for me, your mercy is so high and so rare that even Brahma and Shankar cannot have this. And that's how he begins this other verse. Yo Brahma, Rudra, Shuka, Narada, Bhishma. Mukyar. Alakshito nasahasa purushasya tasya. So he's saying, good. So even Narada and the gurus of Narada, the 4 Kumaras, they cannot have this mercy. This is what Raghunath Das Goswami is telling to Srimati Radhika. It is very rare to have the mercy of the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika. You should know who she is. Then Gurudev is quoting this verse from Radharasa Sudhanidhi. You can repeat after me. I constantly remember.
I constantly remember
The foot dust of Shri Radhika, whose unlimited power instantly subdues even the Supreme Person Shri Krishna, who himself cannot be easily seen, even by the greatest devotees, like Brahma, Shiva, Narad, and Bhishma. So Gurudev says Brahma, Rudra, Bhishma, and Narad are highly developed Jnani Bhaktas. They are Aptakam and they are also Atmaram. Atmaram, they are self-realized and they are self-satisfied. Aptakam means they're fully self-realized and Atmaram, fully self-satisfied. So on rare occasions, they can have the darshan of Krishna, but not Radhika. They came at the time of the Ras Leela, but they saw only Krishna dancing and singing, not with the gopis. Their wives saw them all, however, and they fainted. Here, Das Goswami is praying, if anyone worships you, Srimati Radhika, and if he has even a little spark of your mercy, then Krishna will give himself solely to that person. Do you understand? Gurudev is asking. If anyone has a mere particle of dust from the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika, and if Krishna knows this fact, then he will wholly and solely give himself to that devotee. Yes, that's the power of Srimati Radhika's dust particle. So how Krishna's heart melted. When Raghunath Das Goswami was uttering this shloka, he at once entered a deep mood, and he saw that Srimati Radhika has given her whole heart to the lotus feet of Krishna. She worships Krishna not only by offering her one life, but she offers her life millions and millions of times over. That's her worship of Krishna. Her life multiplied millions and millions of times is likened to a dipa, a lamp, which is offered during the artik. Her artik is not to Krishna, but to a part of Krishna, to his lotus feet. Not to his feet, but to a part of one of his feet, to one toe. She is not worshipping the whole toe, but the toenail. And not actually the toenail, but the tip of the toenail. In fact, she is not actually even worshipping the tip of his toenail, but the rays emanating from the tip of his toenail. Srimati Radhika ki jai. So when Krishna saw this scene, his heart melted. He thought, what shall I do? I will have to repay her, otherwise I will be indebted. He wanted to repay his debt, and he was selecting a suitable time for this. One day, he got that occasion to serve her. During Nishanta Leela, their early morning pastimes, they were both sleeping, and the gopis were peeking through the vines of the kunja. A rooster stood up and began to crow very loudly. His crowing resembled the early morning recitation of the Vedas by Brahminical students. Radha's and Krishna's sleep was broken by that crowing, but they did not leave each other. They were in rasa. Sometimes their eyes were closing, sometimes opening. Again, the rooster crowed loudly, and Radhika said, "The rooster should die and go to hell, and he should cry there, not here." So when that rooster stopped crowing, Radhika thought that he had gone to hell and would cry there, and they would not be disturbed. Again, they became free from anxiety. This is all described, the Nishanta Leela, how waking up Radha and Krishna gradually. They don't want to wake up, they don't want to leave. So, when they finally awoke, then Srimati Radhika told to Krishna, "What have you done? You have upset all of my decorations. If Lalita and Vishaka come and they see, they will laugh and they will joke about me. So please decorate me at once." And then as soon as Krishna began, then Radhika said, "Why are you so slow? You should do it at once. Otherwise you will have to be punished by Kamadev. You have called that demigod. He came and you have worshipped him. You have brought him from the mandir. You have placed him on a throne. And you have performed archan, puja, and artik. And although the puja has been completed, however, you have left all the paraphernalia outside the mandir. Now you should put everything back in the mandir, and no sign of the puja should remain. Otherwise you will be blamed, and you will be punished by that devata." Which devata? Kamadev. Then Krishna replied humbly, "Oh yes, you are quite right." And he became prepared. So how does Krishna decorate Srimati? At once Tulsi Manjari, Rupa Manjari, and all the very near and dear Manjaris entered the kunja. And they came with plates in their hands, brushes, kumkum, chandan, kasturi, rose water, and pots. And Krishna thus began to decorate Srimati Radhika. He was a very good artist. He combed her hair, made tilak designs, and rendered many other services. And Srimati told him, "You are not a very good artist. You should decorate me from bottom to top, not from top to bottom. You have inadvertently washed away my red lac, so you should first replace it." Then Krishna took a brush and began to paint, but his hand began to tremble because of the many bhavs manifesting in him. Tulsi Manjari and all the other Manjaris were laughing. Srimati saw this and told Tulsi Manjari, "You should do it. This new one, he cannot do it properly. He is quite neophyte, so you should do it." Then Tulsi Manjari came forward and forcibly took the pot by pushing Krishna aside with her elbow, and she was laughing. Srimati admonished her, "Why are you laughing? You should just paint." Then she put her foot on the forehead of Tulsi Manjari, the same lotus foot that Krishna had been painting and had placed on his heart. The touch of her foot on the head of this Manjari left a stamp of fresh red lac mixed with the kumkum paste which had been on the heart of Krishna and which had originally come from her. And when Tulsi Manjari began to look at herself in a mirror, at once Raghunath Das Goswami came to his external consciousness. He was loudly weeping and remembering, "Oh, it is very rare for Krishna, what to say of others like Brahma, Shuka, Narada, to have the mercy of the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika. Yet at that time I obtained her reddish footlac on my head. O Sumukhi, O Sundari, beautiful one who has attracted Krishna to serve her feet, how is it possible to describe your beauty? I am praying that what to say of a direct darshan, if even in a dream I get the occasion to have on my head that red lac and kumkum from your feet, then my head will be the highest part of my body. It will only be the highest limb if you will put your feet on my head, and only then will it be meaningful. Swapne pikim sumukite charanam bhujata." And now he is repenting, lamenting, and rolling on the banks of Radha Kunda. Rajat Paraga Patavasa. Here the word paraga means the pollen of the lotus flower. Your feet are like lotus flowers. Vibhushanena, that paraga of your lotus feet will be my decoration. Shobham, it will be so beautiful. Param atitaram, aho, O Radhike, Bibrad Bhavishyati Kada Mamasarta Nama, wearing the ornament of that paraga, I will consider that my head is now meaningful. Otherwise, it has no meaning. So, we went a little over time. There's more, but we'll do that tomorrow. We'll be reading about Radhika's Kunkum Paraga, and then 4 kinds of meeting, and then that will complete this commentary on this verse. Gaur Premanandi. Jai Shri Shri Vilapa-kusumanjali ki jai. Jai Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pada ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Pada ki jai. Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga ki jai. Sachinandan Gaur Hari ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. You can sing.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Yashoda Nandana Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Yashoda Nandana Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Radhika Ramana
Radhikara Mangalama Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Vinod Bihari Radha Govind Jiu Ki Jai. Shri Shri Rupa Anuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Pramanandi. Vrindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha. Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah. Vansha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo.